would be the only solution. I do believe that would be otherwise it would be the war forever and the destruction of the whole region. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for us to be here in front of yourself, Dr. Moncef. And I thank the organizing committee as well for allowing us this amazing opportunity. I have two questions for you, if I may. The first question, I'm from a Sudanese Egyptian background, and with that in mind, we always looked at the Tunisian Arab Spring version as a success story, but obviously it's all subjective. What we feel is, although you're disappointed with the outcome of that, but it's at least gave us a bit of a hope in that MENA area. How would you reflect on your learnings, and if time takes you back, what would you have done differently in terms of trying to avoid the outcome that you eventually leaded up to? And how can people from Egypt, Sudan, obviously Libya, wherever in the Middle East, learn from these reflections? That's one question. The second question relates to Palestine. I was born just after the Camp David Treaty. Before that, it was all war. Anything that happened had ramifications. And then suddenly we reached up to 2019, 2020, when relationships with Israel, in particular from UAE and Saudi, were almost normalized. And I think maybe what's happening now in Gaza, if we take ourselves 40, 50 years ago, probably would have not been acceptable. But we've not heard any voices coming out of the Middle East, seeing people completely annihilated in Palestine, and without any response of a similar magnitude. So is this going to be the normal from here onwards? Is this what people of my generation and probably my kids are going to see? Exactly a Nazi style extermination of people in Palestine. Is this going to be what we will accept in the future? To you.
I told you that Tunisia could have been a success story, but it's not. And I think Libya also could have been a success story. It's not. Egypt, etc., etc. But please don't forget that if you consider, for instance, the history of Algeria, Algeria fought against the French colonialism for more than maybe 8 years. Imagine how many battles have been, how many battles the Algerians had to fight before they got their independence. It was not easy. The same thing for they called our second independence, democracy. We have lost a lot of battles, but the war is still raging. It's not over. It's not over because we have the same reasons that was behind the eruption of the volcanoes are still there: repression, poverty, injustice, corruption, etc., etc. This is why the process is still going on. And don't forget that after the revolution, we have always a counter-revolution. The counter-revolution will do everything to sabotage the revolution, so the revolution would fail. But the counter-revolution itself would fail. This is exactly what's happening in Egypt. After the coup, has the coup solved any problem of Egypt? You still have more poverty, more corruption, etc., etc. So the pressure inside the volcanoes is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. This is why I expect that probably in Egypt it will be the next explosion of the volcano. The same in Tunisia. It's the counter-revolution failed totally. And look what's happened in Syria. The Bashar regime did everything to sabotage the revolution, to prevent the people of Syria to get rid of the dictatorship. And what happened? The Syrian people prevailed. So the war is still going on. This is why I always say we lost some battles, but we're going to win the war. I'm quite sure. Now about Gaza. The Palestinian people once again is fighting for the first independence, and not the second. And now, but in fact, the two issues are linked. Just imagine that my brother and my friend Mohammed Morsi, I call him the martyr Mohammed Morsi. Imagine that he was still in charge. Do you think that Gaza would have had the same fate? Of course not. Because when you talk about the blockade, in fact, Gaza was not under Israeli blockade, it was under Egyptian blockade. You know that. So in fact, the relationship between the dictatorship and what's happening in Israel is very close. So if we can get rid of dictatorship, I think this would help very much the Palestinian people. Just because, once again, if you have now democratic states in Egypt or in Jordan, we would never have been this, what happened in Gaza, never.
Carl, I'll come to you next. Gentlemen, please. Yourself here.
Okay. Speak now.
Yes.
Okay. I think I'll speak loud. So, I have two questions. First of all, thank you very much for coming. And the quick question is that's probably on the mind of everyone else, and probably it's an organization question. Because I only found out about the talk today, and I immediately changed my plans so that I can come. And I thought I would be probably I wouldn't manage to come through because there would be it should be really fully packed. And that's why it's a question on the mind of everyone, why we don't have so many people here. Was it badly advertised or quickly advertised, or what's the reason? I must ask you this question because everyone's saying, because really, when Dr. Marzouki here, it should be really fully packed.
Well, I think at the moment the public, is very much concerned with Palestine.
Yeah.
And that's why in my introductory remarks I tried to address the issue of Palestine, to start the discussion around Palestine. And in a sense, Tunisia is off the radar. It's not a major point of public concern today, as is Palestine.
It was.
And it may have been.
It was in 2011.
Exactly. It was the model. It was the model. Everyone looked up to it. But with the genocide, the unfolding genocide, the marches, the public outrage, we thought about it ourselves. How could we tie this event into what is happening in Palestine?
Yeah.
That is what is going to bring people out today.
Yeah.
We are thankful.
It's a shame because I'm Palestinian, and I think many Palestinians can learn a lot from Dr. Marzouki. So it is a missed chance for us. Now to my second question. And possibly I'll come with a disagreement with the way you interpret what happened in Gaza. I personally, I don't really think we prevailed in Gaza. It is disastrous. I mean, the outcome is disastrous. And we must be really honest about interpreting the situation in Gaza. Gaza has been destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of families have been expelled from their homes. Also, in terms of dignity, we in Gaza have never been in such a state of humiliation as what we experience right now. So I don't really think we need to glorify our situation, and the people who and these people that we see on TV, these are not really victorious people who are returned to their homes. These are people who were expelled from their homes, and now they are forced to walk back. They were not. They don't even have the opportunity to be taken in vehicles back to their homes. They were forced to walk to their destroyed homes, and many of them returned because they don't have other opportunity because Arab countries have closed their borders. And that takes me to my question that I would really love to hear your answer, which is, I believe that the way we are fighting right now, the armed resistance, is very counterproductive and is even self-destructive. And because we don't have, because if we want to go, we should only pursue military solution when we have the means to carry it through to the end. But the way it is done, that we just do one one operation here or there, and then wait for all the wrath of the Israeli to come on us. And as we saw, it was an operation in October which triggered a genocidal war that destroyed Gaza, and that shouldn't have been done in the first instance, this operation, because we don't have really the means of possibly protect our civilization and or to make any gains. And also we haven't made any political gains, but we were this a war was triggered that annihilated Gaza. So what do you think about really radical non-violent resistance? I happen to believe this is our only viable solution. Not because I think Israel will shame Israel into granting us our rights, but because I think with the military solution, 100% failure. With non-violent resistance, maybe 30%, whatever solution that we get to your solution of Mandela solution. Because otherwise, the military solution will give us a Netanyahu.
Okay. In 2010, there was a peaceful right to return.
Well, I understand what you said, because really what the population of Gaza has suffered is extremely, it's terrible, etc. I really understand, and I accept what you said about this, the level of suffering, etc. But everybody is talking about the 7th of October, but nobody is talking about the 6th of October, the 5th of October, the 4th of October. At that time, what was the situation? The Palestinian people, the choice is to live under blockade in Gaza forever, to accept apartheid in Israel forever, and to accept colonization, the whole colonization of the West Bank. This was the choice. So when you have a nation or you have a people with this kind of choice, it's up to you to decide, would you accept, to live all the time, forever, under blockade in Gaza, or do you accept apartheid in Israel, or do you accept colonization, or to raise for your to stand up for your rights? I'm talking about Mandela. Mandela is my spiritual father. I had the honor to meet him in the 1990s, to talk to him, etc. I know everything about his life. I went as head of state to his burial in South Africa when he died in 2013, I think. You know that Mandela was never accepted by Amnesty International, as you know, as something that would be defended by Amnesty, because he said, look, I am for dealing with whites, trying to find any kind of political solution, etc. But if we have to fight, we would fight. And this is why he was called terrorist. I remember that Margaret Thatcher used to say here in Great Britain, I'm never going to shake hands with a terrorist. And this guy came here to London, has shake hands with the Queen, you remember that. So I'm in this I think we have to be in this kind of situation. Okay, let's try to do everything, I, as a human rights activist and also as a physician, etc. I hate violence. I would like to find any kind of solution out of violence. But if I had to fight for it, I would do it. Because it's the other side didn't let anything, any kind of choice except, standing for my rights and fighting for my rights. It's not my responsibility. It's responsibility. We did everything, to push towards violence. Now, as I told you, I'm afraid that if we still in this framework that really we're going to have war forever, and this would lead to the destruction of the whole region, not only the Palestinian people, but the Israeli people, etc., etc. And the alternative for this, what I call the Netanyahu solution, is the Mandela solution. Well, let's try. It's also a way of doing politics, trying to use peaceful meaning, etc. But if you don't have the choice, if the other side is is not accepting any kind of discussion, any kind of solution, except the fact that you leave the West Bank to the settlers and you accept apartheid, etc. I think nobody would accept it. It's normal that the Palestinians would fight and would pay this very, very high price.
You've talked about internal and external factors influencing. But recently we've all witnessed the devastation in Syria, the overturning of Assad. We've seen Hezbollah brought down effectively to its knees, Lebanon, and most pundits are openly accepting that Israel has an open mandate now to pursue a course of complete annihilation. You've got a president now in the United States who's openly canvassing for the removal of all Palestinians from, and that genocide that has been taking place for years, there's every sign that it will be taken to its conclusion in the next short while. You're referring regularly to permanent war, ongoing war. I can't see permanent war. I don't think this needs to last very much longer. If they keep at this scale of destruction and devastation, the people can't live in Gaza. They're not going to be able to live there. And they won't be able to live in West Bank if they're being tormented, murdered and slaughtered on a daily basis, with UNRWA being destroyed and removed. They are on a road to total annihilation in a very short space of time. That's my first point I'd like you to address. The second one, I was in Tunisia just after the overthrow, and I was on the streets, and I was uplifted to see the people on the streets literally pushing back the army outside municipal buildings, shouting and screaming at them. The energy, the excitement, it was unparalleled. The solution was being offered as Ennahda at that time. I have to ask you the question, is it about a question of leadership that we have seen failure? Failure in Egypt, because I also had long conversations with Mohamed Morsi. Is it about the failure of leadership? Or do you still believe that it's just the external factors? Look, in Gaza, you've got the United States, you've got Britain and the European Union literally putting themselves up to say that if anybody resists this, we will take action, so that Netanyahu has a free run to do whatever he likes. How do you see that changing? There can not be a resistance if you've got world powers uniting to put a barricade of protection against Netanyahu.
Well, I totally agree with you about. Let's begin by the second question. Is it a question of leadership? Yes, of course, it was a question of leadership. But when you have any kind of phenomena, you cannot explain it by just one factor. It's always a set of complex factors, many factors, working together and then leading to this to the outcome. So imagine that in Tunisia or in Egypt, we have the best leadership in the world. How do we deal with the fact that media are corrupted? How do we feel with the fact that you will have terrorist attacks coming from Algeria? How would you deal with the fact that the European country will do anything for you because they don't like this kind of this kind of democracy giving power to Islamists? Because for French mind, for example, you cannot be a Democrat if you're not secularist. If you are Islamist, it means that you are not Democrats. So how do we deal with all this? Even if you have the best, I don't mean that it's not an important factor to have a good leadership, but I can assure you that it's not that simple. You can have the best leadership, but there was a regional veto, an important veto. You cannot imagine the amount of money that the Emirates would, for the axis of evil, is Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. Both those three countries did everything to sabotage the process, whether in Syria or in Tunisia, etc. So we have to deal really with very, very difficult condition. But I take responsibility for what happened in Tunisia. And once again, I told you, we were very naive, because we thought that bringing the tools of democracy, freedom of expression, freedom of association, fair election, etc., the people would choose the best. No, the people didn't choose the best. The people chose the worst. And this must be acceptable. You know, when you have people, you know, under the living, you know, after decades of oppression, they want everything. They think that when you have a revolution, everything should be solved in one, you know, overnight. And when this didn't happen, you know, they would throw you away, say you are not useful, you are worse than the other, and then they bring what. And you cannot say that because you know, the Arab peoples or African countries. Look what happens in the United States. You know, we have 40 million Americans who voted for a man like Trump. So you don't have the right, you know, to say the Arabs or the Africans are backwards. No, it's much more complex than that. And now for the once again for what happened in Gaza, what's expected in Gaza. I don't know, do we have a solution? What's your opinion? What should be done? What kind of path do we have to follow?
Look, I'm in the throes of conversation about the conflict in Sudan. And you're mentioning the United Arab Emirates. They are one of the biggest reasons why that war continues. It's proxies who are getting involved. And the issue in Gaza, the only way that Netanyahu has been able to do what he's done is with the full backing of the United States and the European Union and the United Kingdom. He could never have got that far. I have to recognise, of course, that a large proportion of the population of Israel are supportive of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's another very extreme, dangerous tendency for a country that was essentially founded on sort of socialistic principles. It's become a totally fascist state. So you're asking me what is the answer? I'm not going to be able to deliver a solution, but what I will say is you would be making a mistake to think that Gaza is going to be there in any form related to Palestine in the next 4 or 5 years, based on the current trajectory and based on the fact that we've got Donald Trump in power for that period of time, and you've got a UK government which is wholly supportive of that move. So I'm hoping that you can put some perspective possibly on a different outcome to this permanent war, because I don't imagine that. And I think that we're not just talking about Gaza. We're talking about the whole of the Middle East. We're talking about places like Sudan, in which the international power players are interfering and managing and deliberately undermining any possibility of democratic government.
Just one comment. When I talk about war for return and war, do you remember that the first battle to fight against Zionism was in 1935. In 1935, Qassam, Azadin Qassam, was killed in this very famous battle. So in fact, the Palestinians are fighting for the first independence since 90 years, about 1 century now. And I'm afraid that this process will continue. I don't know when and if they are getting their first independence. But for the moment, you have to salute these people fighting for nearly 1 century for the first independence. You have to admire these people. And this is why I do think that it won't be easy, you know, for Trump or for any Arab leaders, you know, to remove these people from Gaza or to take them outside, etc. This is great people. This is very strong people. And we have to admire them.